That's what I did a while ago, but it's working better now. Woo, is it working better? Hope everybody is. Oh, that's wonderful. Thanks. Well, does anybody got some sunglasses? No, I never mind. This will work for me, but it might be brighter than y'all want me. That's a little bit loud still. Ground control to Major Tom. That's better. Can everybody hear that? Carl, can you hear me? Okay. Before we start our class, I've got to move this forward too. We're not going to go back over everything we did, but we didn't get quite through, so we're going to probably start there and then do this one and try to get another small lesson. We're all saddened tonight with the death of Sister Dykes, and I guess everyone's heard that by now, but I'll have a prayer as we start in a minute, and we'll remember her and JP and Levon. Did JP get to come home today? No. So we still want to remember them for sure, and Glennis, and I'm sure there's others that we'll hear about later on. Did you, Lisa? Okay. Well, just bow with me. Father, thank you for your love and your protection, your guidance on a stormy night. And know there's a lot of things going on, and pray for those that have to get out in this as far as firemen and police officers and first responders and road crews and things like that. But we thank you that we can be here with your family. We pray for our Sister Dyke's family tonight. We love this lady, and we are thankful that we've gotten to know her, but we hurt tonight with them on her passing. Pray for JP and Levon and the struggles they've been going through recently, and pray for Sister Glennis and her family as well. Thank you for loving us. Thank you for caring for us, and bless us as we study tonight. Pray in Jesus' name. Amen. I've taken just a little bit of a nap after I thought I went over this for the last time, and something woke me up, and I thought it was the heat kicking on, but it was thunder. And so that, if it woke me up, that means it sent Ruby over the wall. We got a call a little after 5 that she was down at the vet shop, and now I've made a trip back and forth with the window down calling her, and we hadn't found her, but she knows how to get home. Pat's got her. I didn't put her into prayer, but I'm thankful. I got a call about 5 something, but that was when I was asleep, and I didn't know it. And I checked my phone, and they said that she was down there. She's been there before. Everybody within 2 or 3 miles knows her. Sunday morning when we got here, Stella had decided to leave. And Stella was back on the road that Freddie lives on. And we just happened to go through and see her. So it's, you know, it's just hard to put a smile on if your dog's in trouble. But she's a sweetheart, and we'll do plenty tonight. But a parable Jesus never told. Now, this hopefully will be the conclusion of this lesson tonight. I had some verses I'm going to let someone read, but we'll probably, if we get to those, I can call them out and let you do it. I'll tell you what, I'm just going to just take one of those and pass a couple of them back there. There's people right there to do one of those, if we get that far anyway. Once upon a time, a church was concerned about the future of its youth. We looked at this passage and saw the lesson, the background of this. So they wanted to make sure that things would go good. If you're a church family, you love God, you care about each other, that's something that'll get to your soul, your heart and soul, is our kids and their kids, our grandkids, because it's a scary world that we live in. We saw some of those things last time. There are some things out there that, you know, sometimes kids are going to try things whether you warn them or not, and we want to make sure they're prepared. That picture of the lion, again, if everything looked like that when you walked out the door, you'd probably stay in, but it doesn't always look like that. It's as dangerous, or more dangerous than that in so many ways. But the question, do we really care? We really care. These people sounded like they cared. They were trying to solve the problem. But sometimes just caring and doing something is not always the same. I really commend this congregation. When I gave this lesson in 1996, we never had a full-time youth minister at that point. We still did Bible Bowl. We had not been to any of the winter things that we go to and some of those things. We did go to, I almost said Indian Creek Youth Camp, but it's the other one up here. And we went youth camp. We've done so many things like that. Wonderful programs. Programs by themselves are not the answer. God's the answer. But getting people in touch with people, like when we have the Air Wide Youth Series, to let them know that they're not the only ones their age that are struggling, not the only ones that are trying to please God. So this is not a lesson to bring condemnation on anybody that is or isn't doing it, but it's just get us to see that there is a need always for reevaluating and seeing, are we doing the most we can do? Because that's what we want. We don't want to lose any of them. And we do sometimes, but we don't want that. The armor of God, it's powerful. That fellow right there, I mean, I know what his armor really represents is stuff that never goes out of style, but he looks like he wouldn't last too long in a modern-day warfare setting. Well, sin has always been sin. There's a term I like to use called the technology of sin. The technology of sin changes sometimes, and it gets very complex in the appeal to young people, but the power of the armor of God is still what we have to give them to help them be effective in 2015. It's still that Word of God, all things that pertain to righteousness, godliness. 2 Peter 1:3, I went ahead. We looked at some of these other passages last week. God has given us everything we need. We've got to, probably the most important thing is we've got to live it in front of them. And then we got to teach it to them, and then we got to help them. And we got to gently sometimes, redirect. You've raised children, they have to be redirected. Sometimes that's gentle, and sometimes it might not be gentle. But we've got to do that in the spirit of love to get the results that we want. Okay, I'm going to start talking fast in a minute, so we better turn it up a notch. And the thing with teachers needed, we've had a response here for teachers, and that's wonderful. But this is what this story was telling. So the search for good teachers began, and some said, they made excuses. I really like the class I'm in. I don't want to leave it. But as we pointed out last time, there are those that are going to make things available, opportunities available, temptations available, and if we're not getting good things in, they certainly are going to take our place. There's some, and that's not an uncommon sight at all. If you've been in any big town, you've probably seen it. You don't have to go to a real big town to see it. Someone said, well, I'm just not able to teach children, even preschoolers, about God. Well, don't worry about it. If you don't feel like you can teach people about God, there are folks that have gone to college that will teach them about evolution, teach them about every strange idea imaginable. They're out there. So you better actually worry about it. Even though we know that that's not a wise thing to do. I know people teach this in colleges. I don't know that I've heard it taught in high school, but it's taught in colleges. And it can be intimidating if they're not prepared to face these kind of things. Another would say, kids are so different today, I could never keep their attention. Well, I don't know. Just as I was getting out of the classroom, cell phones were coming in. I don't know where they stand now, but I tell you, that was something I did not enjoy battling with that. And I don't know, but there are lots of things that appeal to kids. But there are people out there that say we can get their attention, movie producers. And we looked at these last week. All kinds of movies, all kinds of stories, weirdest thing you can imagine, some very interesting. Most of them today, even on Netflix, are going to be MA rated unless you're using something like VidAngel. I mean, these things are out there, and they're going to make them think all this is very common if that's all they hear all the time. So, let me find where my notes are. They recognize you can't teach kids who are not here. And that's a problem. We've got to get them here. So they decided to encourage parents to get kids here at every possible service. And some said, we're gone a lot, and we're just too tired on Wednesday. There are demands today made on families for every bit of time they have. And sometimes it's good things. Sometimes it's things that we want to do, but it's so tough to get to the routines. When I was a kid, we had church service Wednesday night, every Wednesday night at 6:30. We'd get out there about 6 o'clock because Mother had walked as a child, and it took about 30 minutes to walk out there. And I'm sure that's why we went. And you just, unless somebody was sick, you didn't miss that. That's not the society we live in today. That's why it's very imperative for us to be aware of the things that are pulling on them, because we are gone a lot, and we are tired. And I don't know how parents and kids do half of what they do. And I'm not saying they're bad things. I just don't know how they get it all done. But there are people that are going to get smut to your kids. You say, I'm too tired, they're going to say, hey, I got something you can look at. And that happens. That's part of what's going on in the world around us today. So someone said, 2 classes a week. That's a big commitment to have them there, to be there for 2 classes a week. But there are other things taking our time, like I said, and this is kind of what we looked at last week. So there are people that are designing clothes, that are making ideas, that are confusing us, and all kinds of things are coming up to occupy their mind. I hope you were here last week, because I know I'm going very fast, but I'm going to try to slow down here in a minute. The planners decided they needed to have devotionals, youth meetings, Bible bowls, retreats, youth outings, maybe even hire a minister just to work with the youth. I don't know, some of you were here before we ever hired our first youth minister. Could you imagine? I can't imagine this church without that. It's just been such a blessing. So much has been carried on in the name of teaching the gospel to our young people. And yet, there was a time when, that was just kind of an idea. Adults, to make this work, have to volunteer. They have to drive. They have to fix snacks. They have to do a lot of things. But it says it's for a good cause. Our young people are important. I don't think anybody in here needs to hear that. I think we know that. And a good youth program, what a blessing to our congregation. I enjoy them going places, but when they're not here on a Sunday night, I miss them. There's some emptiness. But they're at some place with other kids, and it's good for them. A good youth program, just nothing quite like it. The one in you is greater than the one in the world. That's what they need to enjoy. And they can sit here. And I'm not saying they can't have discipline and sit here and listen to a sermon with the rest of us, and they do those things. But to have things specifically tailored for them is very, very wonderful. And that's what some of these are pictures of here. But then somebody said, that's just too expensive to invite speakers, to provide Bibles and all that. If it was a good work, I don't think I've ever heard anybody in this church say it's too expensive. I don't think I've ever heard that when it was something that was needed. And some of these things probably are considerations, but what value, what price are you going to put on the soul of our young people? We're not even going to have that discussion. We know better than that. And then I love that last comment. Besides, I never had one when I was a kid, and I turned out all right. Yeah. Let's ask your wife. Let's ask your brother. Let's ask your mom and dad. How did you turn out? You may have. And sometimes we are the exception because we were careless and we still turned out all right. Sometimes we're not. But a lot of people don't turn out all right. And even with doing everything we can, there are going to be kids that don't turn out the way we want them to turn out. So that's just kind of a false equivalency there, I guess. But like I said last time, the advertising companies, the beer, the tobacco companies, they said, we can get the word out because we're going to sell products. And we had the little thing about cigarette slogans. And most of us knew 4 or 5 of those slogans because that was everywhere on TV until, like somebody said, in the 70s, they took it off TV, but then it's in magazines, the other things, the commercials, the beer commercials, all of that's there. All right? We're nearly back to where we left off. We're not quite got there yet, but breathing here. Some complain youth activities are not all that important. Let them find the wrong thing to do. We have more important things going on. More important than the soul of a teenager? I don't think so. more important than the soul of these people that right now are below the teenage and they get up and hold that Bible and sing these songs for us. I don't think there's anything more important than that. I haven't seen it. There's no saying if that won't light your fire, then your wood must be wet. Well, if you don't feel something when you see that, when you participate in that, something needs to change. But schools, now again, this is not a diss on the schools at all. They're going to have athletic events. They're going to have clubs and parties and things to involve our kids in. Good things. And here's the thing about kids, they're social creatures. They're going to go where they can find a place of comfort. And that's not saying that these things are wrong. They're not. They're wonderful. But what I'm saying is we've got to make sure that we don't just leave our work up to other people. Those things right there, ball games, activities like that, oh, man. It must have been mandatory when I was a kid because if it was going on at school, I went. Maybe because I didn't have any place else to go, but I liked it. I enjoyed that. Our football team, when I was growing up, we won 3 games my senior year, and one of those was by forfeit. And you know what? I wouldn't have missed one. I love being out there. That was Curry we beat by forfeit, so I'll count that one, even though nobody has to know that. Well, I just told you. But, some people say, I can't drive to youth meetings, the gas, wear and tear on my vehicle. And look at this. Same family took off a week and drove to Disney World. Oh. And this winter they're planning ski plans in Colorado. Nothing wrong with Disney World. Nothing wrong with going skiing in Colorado. But the point of that little comment is we do what we want to do. All of us find the time and the money and the opportunity. Maybe not everything we want to, but we have to prioritize and end up doing what we want to do. But the casino operator said, that's okay. By the way, unless you've been involved in a mobile home show in this place, I hope you don't know where this is. Don, where is it? Tunica. See, I knew he would. I knew he wouldn't mind saying that. But there's several that are mentioned there. They have everything that might be a temptation to you is out there. I can remember driving by the road to Eldridge when they had those gambling places in Walker County, and there were 2 big ones built up there in a little bit. One of them close to Shots old grocery store. You know why it was called Shots grocery store? Because somebody broke in there one time. He shot them, and they called it Shots's after that. But I know I taught at Eldridge for a while, and I got to get back to the story. But they're going to feel the need. People are going to find things to do, and the people that are making money, and they don't always care if you leave there penniless or if you leave there messed up on drugs or alcohol. As long as they're making the little do-re-mi for some of them. Okay? Notice that, I couldn't hold a youth devo at my house. Those little monsters, it might break something. There's a story, somebody mentioned Ira North the other day. I remember the story of Ira North. He had in Nashville, he had a house, and he had a very expensive lamp over the table. And one of the kids hit a golf ball or something there and broke it. And he talked about cleaning it up. He said, I hope that's the last thing we've got that's important. So now we can just live and enjoy this house. He didn't complain about losing something expensive at all because he wanted his house to be a house that you live in. So the mess to clean up later, but the city had dozens of music groups getting in town, and the town's closed, and they even hired people that would clean them up. There's city stages in Birmingham. There are places smaller and closer than Birmingham that have these kind of events. And it can be a tremendous mess to clean up, but, it's what you want to do. So here's where this story kind of winds down. So the adults stayed in their classes. The kids slept in on Sundays. Parents stayed busy until their kids were grown. Families went away on weekends, and the youth group was inactive. That can happen just in a generation. It doesn't have to take a long time for that to happen, and it's so sad. That's why, they say preaching to the choir. Yeah, I know that here. But that's what this lesson was about to start with. But the drug dealers, the porn sellers, the movie producers, all these people, they spent money doing whatever it took to win the minds of our youth. Somebody's going to get your kid's mind. And they all claim great success. I don't think you can isolate or insulate them completely from the things in the world that pull, but they got to have a fair shot at choosing God over these things. When we love them, we want them to do that. Now, it'd be nice, But there are people after them, and they'll come after them. Finally, the planners were reminded of the parable of the unjust steward. The children of this world, in their generation, wiser than the children of light. And here's the conclusion. We can teach our children or someone else will. And bottom line, that's where it comes down. And I've got to get to a slide here in a minute, and we'll start something. Okay. The last little bit of this is the same lesson we're on. I call this the eye doctor principle. All right? Which is better, this, click, or this? We'd rather have them here. We'd absolutely rather have them here. And if you had that building full of kids, you'd have problems. But they would be at a place where they might actually get some help. And that's what's wonderful. Any comments or questions? I know I flew through that to try to get to the end of it. Is this Valentine's Day yet? Close? Friday. Well, this would be the 12th then. All right, let's go back in time to February the 2nd. What's special about February the 2nd? Groundhog's Day. I want you to look at this next slide. You might not know this. No doubt millions of Americans ate groundhog for breakfast on Groundhog's Day. True or false? It's true. Well, sausage is groundhog, right? And I did the numbers. About 174 million Americans eat sausage for breakfast. And so they don't have to eat them every day for you to say millions of people ate some on that day, because it's a very foregone conclusion. Some people eat sausage, but they don't eat it for breakfast. I don't care when I eat it. I can eat it whenever. But groundhog, okay. That's not as bad as my Forrest Gump joke from last week, but it's getting there. Groundhog's Day quiz. Name the most famous groundhog of all. You don't know his first name? He said Phil. Punxsutawney Phil. I misspelled that terribly on the first notes I wrote down, but I know how to spell it now. I'm not going to just show out for you, but I do know it. Punxsutawney Phil, he's 139 years old. If you ask them how many groundhogs have they had through all the years, 130, you know what they'll say? One. Now, they don't mention the fact that on the first Groundhog Day, they actually did eat the groundhog, not sausage. They ate the groundhog on the first one. And there was one groundhog several years later that died because somebody put some new equipment in his cage and it had lead paint. And he ate the lead paint chips and it killed him. And also there's another problem. Groundhogs in captivity live 10 to 14 years maximum. So probably that's just part of their tradition they're trying to get you to buy into. But it is a cute tradition. We'll see some pictures of that in a minute. Let's see what the next question is. What's the shadow legend about the groundhog? He goes back in for 6 more weeks. And the badger that did that in England, that kind of where it was from, in Germany, where they started that, he would go in for 40 days. I'm thinking, well, 40 days is about 6 weeks, so that's right. He goes back in, and if he doesn't, then you get an early spring. We've had that happen like once in the last few years. It might have been last year that he didn't see a shadow, but I don't know if spring came earlier, and I don't remember that. But it's not supposed to be science. It's supposed to be tradition, and it's pretty good at that. There, the guys at Gobbler's Knob there in Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania, and holding up that lovable creature of all. All right? Why do you think it's celebrated on February the 2nd? This is interesting. Well, I'm going to tell you then. I thought somebody would know that. Candlemas, which is the celebration of the people, this goes back to some Christian tradition that's not in the Bible, but going back to people celebrating the purification of Mary after the birth of Jesus. They figured it was between these two. Anyway, halfway between the winter solstice and the vernal equinox. Now, that's a saying that Jesus was born then, and there's no evidence of that at all. But in a lot of traditions, they don't care where they get started. They got started. And they had to get wax for their candles, so it's called Candlemas. That was celebrated on February the 2nd. And that's just kind of why this became chosen as the time for this rascally rodent celebration. All right. Now you know I had to get a little pop culture in on it. Who starred in the 1993 movie Groundhog's Day? Bill Murray. Bill Murray is one of them. Anybody else ever heard of that movie besides me? Groundhog's Day? Okay. Bill Murray and Andie MacDowell. What's Andie MacDowell currently starring in? I mean, and she was young in 93. She's my age now. She's not young. There's a Hallmark Channel movie called The Way Home. It's a series about some people that go in the spring and they go back in time. She's in that. She's the mama in that if you ever happen to watch that. But she was a very big star back during the time of the 1993 movie. Oh, yeah, by the way, there's the answers. Bill was Phil, not the groundhog, Phil the reporter. And Andie was Rita, all right? And there, how young they both look. Neither one of them look young like that. It's funny how time does that. Because I look pretty young in 93, I guess, but not anymore. That happens. All right. What woke Phil the man up every morning and became his notification that it was still February the 2nd? Alarm clock. You know what kind of alarm clock it was? You remember those that have the little number, half numbers, and they flip over and then change the date or the time? It was a clock radio. Everybody one back in the day had one of those pretty much. And it came on playing the same song every day. And that old guy on the radio said, "Good morning, campers. It's cold out there." He did all that besides playing that one particular song. I'm going to ask you what song is for minutes to be thinking of that. There's that alarm clock. And if you look very closely, those letters just flip over in half when it changes. It goes to the next one. But there's Bill Murray, and like I said, he's much younger than he is now. What was the song that came on the radio every day? It was a song by Sonny and Cher, and I remembered the wrong song. I think my song would have been better, actually. It was a song called I Got You, Babe. And you know what I remembered out of my warped sense? I remembered The Beat Goes On. I think The Beat Goes On would have been a better song for a movie that just kept going back to the same day over and over for 39 times or however many times it did that. What finally let it change from February the 2nd to February the 3rd? Anybody remember this? See, I didn't remember all this either, but I remembered enough to ask. When Phil finally admitted that he loved Rita, he confessed his love for Rita, then it changed. Then he got out of that cycle they've been in. If you count that every day, it didn't change as a year. Apparently, some people have figured, they say that was 30-something years on that. I just thought it was that many days in a row that it was February 2nd, but it's just kind of weird, but you can argue with those people. But you know, there's a saying that we used to have at recovery classes: if nothing changes, nothing changes. What's Galatians 2:20 say? I'm crucified with Christ, nevertheless I live, yet not I, but Christ liveth in me, and the life that I now live in the flesh, I live by the faith of the Son of God who loved me and gave himself for me. This lesson is not about rodents, alive or dead or 100 years old or seeing their shadow. But Phil confessed his love for Rita, and it changed. Something, you got to have something. If you're doing the same thing the way you always did the same thing, you're probably going to get the same results, okay? Something had to change. What about us? This was a lesson actually we had a jail service on the 2nd, and so I got to do this one in the girls' cell. I didn't have all the slides or anything, but we did this on Groundhog Day. Sandra said it won't be any good if it's not on Groundhog Day. Well, it's the same month, okay? We're close. You ever get in a rut? You ever need just to shake things up in a good way and break the cycle? There's another thing we used to say at recovery class: wherever you go, there you are. What you do is what you're going to get. If you go there, you're going to be there. It's not going to change itself. What's God's rule about sowing and reaping? That sounds like that might be biblical. Whatever one sows, that will they also reap. That's not just a biblical principle. It's true in just about everything in life. But it definitely is a biblical principle. You're going to get what you sow. You're going to reap what you sow. All right? So you're in a rut. You're in a bad problem. How can we break those things up and change and make those things different? One, the first is to reflect. What's holding me back? Why am I not making any progress? Why is life still as hard as it was 5 years ago, 10 years ago? Will it be that way 5 years from now, 10 years? Will I even be here if things continue? You have to do some reflection. That is so good because you can get routined. You can routine yourself into not ever making any progress. Do the same thing. Not all routines are bad. I have my 1 cup of coffee at about the same time every morning. I had 2 today, and I've been, it wasn't good to have 2 today. But routines, sometimes they can hold you back. Secondly, here's another question. Just ask this point blank. Have you been hurt? This is not an insurance commercial or a Shannara commercial. Have you been lied to? Have you been mistreated? That does sound like a Shannara commercial almost. Well, there are 2 things you can do here. Pity or progress. You can feel sorry for yourself, and there are people that I feel sorry for because I've seen they've had the deck stacked against them. They've had problem after problem fall down upon their heads, and it didn't have to be their fault. It just happened. But at the same time, when you reflect and you see, I got these problems, what can you do about it? Your choice. Joshua 24:15 says, choose you this day whom you'll serve. Okay, how about us? We have choices to make. And there's an old song by Rush that's called Free Will that said, if you choose not to decide, you still have made a choice. That's exactly right. You can say, Vance will extend an invitation to decide to obey the gospel. But, if you don't decide to obey the gospel, you're deciding not to obey the gospel. And that can, after you've done that a while, you get to thinking, well, that's all I've ever done. That's all I know to do. So you've got to figure out a way to break this. Little changes add up big. Study to show thyself improved. Just a little extra Bible study, just a little bit can become more. It can be something that you can look at passages in life. You can see the passage you've read 100 times and see something new in it. I don't know how that happened. Well, God's powerful and His Word's powerful. But sometimes you can see maybe your situation has changed. Maybe your level of understanding has changed. But you can make changes in that. Pray, read, listen. There are lots of things that we can learn to do. Another one is gratitude. Be thankful for what God has done for you. I can do all things through Him who strengthens me. God will supply. The biggest thing supplied in verse 19 would be the salvation He supplied through His Son, sending His Son and turning His back on His Son for us. So there's gratitude that should be inherent to us if we really just think about what God has done for us. But you don't have to. You can stay miserable. You can stay lost. You can stay confused. You can keep doing the same thing over and over and wondering why the results aren't different. I mean, it happens. We've done that, some of us, for a long time. But we got an opportunity to do better. Wherever you are, and I especially focused on this, speaking this lesson inside jail cell that Sunday, you must surround yourself with positives because they are good, there's bad. You can go to a church service and you can find things that make you upset. You can go to a jail cell and you can find reason to have hope. Anywhere you go, there's going to be good, there's going to be bad. And which you hone in on, which you react to, is going to help you determine what you're going to be in the future. There's Psalm 23, verse 4. I will feel no evil, for you are with me. God will go with us, but He's not forcing us to go with Him. He will give us an opportunity. All right? Uh-oh. I had to find that picture. I Googled Google Eyes. That's what I did. Google Eyes, because that's what I thought. What in the world could that mean? Whatever it is in life you're looking for, that's what you're going to find. If you want there to be hypocrites in the church to give you an excuse to stay home, guess what? You'll find them. If you want to find sweet people that'll help encourage you, you'll find them too. It's just whatever you're looking for is pretty much what you're going to find as long as you're realistic and really look for it. Matthew 7, verse 7. And it took me a long time to remember what that says. But you see the A with the dot, S with the dot, and K with the dot. That's the order of that. Ask, and it shall be given to you. Seek, ye shall find. Knock, and the door shall be opened unto you. If you're looking for it might just be you want to complain. It might just be you want to make people around you miserable. I bet we all know some people that they must just want to make folks around them miserable. I mean, we might have been that person, okay? It's possible. but you're going to find what you're looking for. Oh, I love this one. I love this slide. What is that? Does that look like something out of the Middle Ages? The Guild of Master Craftsmen. In the Middle Ages, you had master craftsmen, and you had sometimes it was kids that the parents couldn't afford. They'd say, you go live with the master craftsman, and you clean their floors, and they will make you an apprentice. All right? But after a few years of being an apprentice, you got to see how good the master was. You know what they would ask for? An opportunity to prove to the master craftsman that they were also a master craftsman. This is fixing to be biblical, okay? Stay with me. And so they would do a sample of work. And if that sample was considered good enough for them to stop being a journeyman or an apprentice, they could be called a master craftsman. And guess what? That sample of work was called masterpiece. The masterpiece made you on the level of the master craftsman. A work by which a craftsman attains the rank of master. Look at Ephesians 2, verse 10. Somebody turn to Ephesians 2, verse 10. And we might read it in a verse that doesn't have the word I want, but I think I know what it says in the King James. Ephesians 2, verse 10. Not everybody wants. We are his workmanship. Some translations actually say masterpiece. When you think about it, where were you before you became a Christian? How had you lived? What were you doing? And for God to take something like you and turn it into somebody he could call his son or his daughter, that's the work of a skilled craftsman. And you become proof of how God can change lives. It's so important that we see that. Is this your life? Driving around with a groundhog day after day, and the next day it's just the same as it was the day before, and you don't have any friends and nobody likes you and you're not going anywhere? That's pretty much the way Phil was living. Well, both of those were Phil, but we can grow. 2 Peter 3:18 says that we should grow in grace. We should grow. I don't know. There's not exactly a yearly measure. I mean, when you're a little kid, they'll measure how tall you are on the wall, and sometimes they'll write on the wall, and it's a beautiful thing. But where would it be if we measured our Christianity or spirituality year after year? Might not be, might even regress, but we're told that we must grow. We also need to open and give. Somebody read 2 Timothy 1, verse 7 for me, if you'll get that one, please. 2 Timothy 1:7. You got it, Jake? I got it. All right. Go ahead.
For God has not given us the spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind.
Okay, power, love, sound mind. But we're afraid. We're afraid we're going to mess up. We're afraid we're going to hurt somebody's feelings. I know he rang the bell, but we got to tie this together. Look at this right here. Remember the movie we talked about, whether you'd seen it or not? What did I tell you it was that changed from February 2nd to February 3rd? What made it change? He confessed his love for her. Let me show you something. Expressing our love for God can change everything. Jesus says, come unto me, all you that labor and heavy laden, I will give you rest. We express our love, not just by saying, I love you, Lord, but we're saying, Lord, what would you have me to do? Jesus said, if you love me, keep my commandments. We have to respond to him to show genuine, obedient love. When we do that, it ain't ever going back. We want to make sure. Thank you for your time, and I'm sorry for breaking the speed limit there, but I wanted to get to that lesson. Thank you so much. Bye. Bye. I guess I'm going to hang up on you. Comments? Throw.
Okay, it's time for us to begin. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being here tonight. Our crowd's quite low, but you're here, and we know it's certainly not wise for some that travel more than 20 miles to be here, and some of them that don't see well at night, and especially when it's raining, foggy, and so let's be mindful of their safety precautions tonight. But first, we mentioned 2 deaths. Both of the ladies were same age, 90 years old. Miss Velvy Dykes died today. Yesterday was a better day. She actually walked down the hall, went to the restroom, went to her room to sleep, got up this morning and ate breakfast and watching TV in the recliner and just died pretty suddenly. And but we don't know exactly right now when the funeral will be, but likely it will be possibly Saturday or Sunday, and that will be at Pinkerton, Haleville. Miss Rose Rogers died. This would be an aunt to Diana Cole and Pat, but she was 90 years old too. We remember her very well from years past, and probably the last 2 or 3 years, she's had kind of a real reserved role at the nursing home, just staying in her room. Used to, she'd be out in the hall and talking to everybody that came by. But her funeral will be tomorrow at 2 o'clock, wouldn't it? At 2 o'clock tomorrow at the local funeral home. And so remember that family. On our sick list tonight, James Allen, I think he's still at the hospital and going to spend another night with the frogs. And maybe tomorrow will be the day that he gets to come home. And I know when you stay in the hospital 8 days already, going on 8 days, that gets to be, when you get feeling a little better, it really begins to get long. So we hope he can get home tomorrow. LaVon's doing okay from her fall. Miss Glennis, she's had good days and ways, and then she's been very emotional yesterday and today. Sat down with her a good long while yesterday and again today, and she just needs our prayers and needs our encouragement. And we do still, I think, need somebody for Saturday morning. If you can help Saturday morning for 4 hours from 7 to 11 is what we're lacking. We got a volunteer already, so that's taken care of. Saturday morning, 7 to 11. And appreciate you so much for doing that. Miss Sue Cavender, Sue had a fever today. We think she may have aspirated on some oatmeal Monday morning, actually, and it may have set up a fever. She has a staph infection in her back, and so Sue's just not doing very well, and certainly encourage your prayers. Tim Myers is still doing good since his back procedure. Diane Godsey, I couldn't get over today how good Diane was walking, and so we're excited for her. Gene Parson. Gene Parson is 92 in just a few weeks. Not really shot up then, but she had a pacemaker put in at Princeton a few days ago, and she is now, they have a new home, a new house has been built near Jasper, and she is living there at this time. Frankie Hicks has pneumonia, and Frankie is struggling right now. Sarah Berry is making progress, but Sarah's not with us. Terry Whittemore had a migraine, but she is better from that, but didn't want to tackle the drive tonight. Jill Blevins, I don't think Jill is with us yet. Greg McCullough is back with us tonight. Good to see you, Greg. Remember Jana Benson, and she has got to have this sinus surgery to stay on the transplant list, and so let's pray that can get done. The Nixes, Kobe and Baylor are better. Continue to remember Kobe's dad, Tommy. Philip Barnett is with us tonight, but Philip has really been affected with bad back pain, and he's just barely able to kind of get along tonight, but we're thankful for his determination to be here. Danielle Taylor is still wearing her heart monitor, and she'll have a procedure on the 20th, and Danielle, we're praying for you. Lorraine Modlin is sick and not able to be with us. Roger and Dorinda both have COVID, and little James Farish has COVID. So here's a 1-year-old with COVID, and Roger and Dorinda. Ronnie Hayes, all of us, most of us would know Ronnie Hayes. Ronnie Hayes, preacher for the church at Adamsville for the last many years, and Ronnie has liver cancer. And please be praying for him. They think that they can handle this, but please be praying for him. Mary Ellen Moon. Many of you here would know Mary Ellen Moon. Her husband, one of the elders at Blackwater for several years, not now, but she had a PET scan about 3 weeks ago, and she had cancer, I guess about a year or so ago, and the cancer has come back. And she'll be facing, don't know exactly yet just what, but please, what a sweet, sweet lady. Bucky Smith, this is Miranda, Deb's daughter, Miranda's father-in-law. Did I get that right? And he has a broken hip, and have asked prayers. Janie Baldy was having a pretty good day today. Miss Betty Humphers as well. Remember the West and Rhonda Morrow. Anthony Dutton, Harold Vickery. Carl Godsey is back in the nursing home, and he is in the room next door to Glennis in room 36. Miss Joyce Mulligan, Joanne Gerganis, Catherine Cole, W.C. Dickinson. Toby Henderson, as far as I know, remains in the hospital at Coleman, and his condition is not very good. Arnetta and Ellis Thompson and J.W. Henderson are folks that we want to remember as well. Thank those who had a part in the Meals on Wheels today. We appreciate Tim Myers for donating sweet potatoes for all the plates, and those that helped with the delivery out in the rain, and appreciate so much all that worked with that in preparing the meal and also the delivery. The Augusta Nicholas School of Biblical Studies class tomorrow night, the bus will leave, or van will leave at 4:45. There's a Men's Day Saturday at East Walker. Miles Stutz is the speaker, and we will need to leave. If you're planning to go, please let Don know, and we need to leave around 7 o'clock, maybe just a few minutes after 7. And I plan to go, but I might not be riding the bus because little Charlie Cleghorn has a birthday party, and he says that I am supposed to be there. So if a little 6-year-old that's facing a surgery on February the 18th and has spina bifida, and if he tells you to be at his party, you're going to probably be there. So I may leave the Men's Day and go directly to his party. We'll have the Winston County Jail Service will be Sunday. Winston County Singing is Sunday at 2 o'clock at the Poplar Springs Church. Now, I know 2 years ago we got down there and the doors were locked, but they won't be locked Monday. I talked to Jim Burton, and so Sunday at 2 o'clock. Justin has done some more work on the directory update, and if you need a new one, let him know, and I know Al's already in it, and appreciate that so much. Tonight, our singles and widows. There is a Valentine bag for you in the fellowship hall, and I think that's been provided maybe by the Nilsons. And if you would, please go by afterward and pick that up, okay? Our prayers tonight will be led by Randy Moody, and we'll ask Chris if he would. Chris, if you'll stand and lead us in our opening prayer, and Randy will have our closing prayer. Let's pray at this time.
We ask you to be with us as we go through the rest of this week.
we'd all recognize that there were 3 crosses of Calvary. We think about Christ, and on either side, we think about those 2 thieves that were on either side. I want you to think for a minute how that there needs to be another cross there. And that cross is yours and mine. We sing a song sometimes entitled, "Must Jesus Bear the Cross Alone?" And in that song, we answer, no. There's a cross for us to bear as well. In Luke chapter 9, verse 23, Jesus said, "If any man come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me." In Matthew chapter 10, the Lord had talked about, "He that loveth father or mother more than me is not worthy of me. He that loveth son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me." And then notice the next verse. "And whosoever he is that taketh not up his cross and followeth after me is not worthy of me." Think about all those verses that talk about how that we too must be a people who put to death sin in our lives, that we must put to death self. And there are lots of passages along that line. I think in Revelation 12, verse 11, it says that they overcame him. One of the ways was by a willingness to die. And you think about Revelation 2:10, "Be thou faithful unto death, and I'll give you a crown of life." You might think of Galatians chapter 5 and verse 24, "And they that are Christ, that belong to Christ, have crucified the flesh with the affections and lusts thereof." And maybe in Colossians chapter 3 and verse 4, "When Christ, who is our life, shall appear, then shall ye appear also with him with glory." But before that, he says, "For ye are dead, and your life is hidden with Christ in God." And that very familiar passage of Galatians 2:20, where Paul said, "I am crucified with Christ." You remember his statement in Acts 21 and verse 13? He said, "I'm ready to die." He was ready to die for the Lord. So how about your cross? Are there 4 crosses there? There should be. And one's yours, and that one is mine. If you're here tonight, not a Christian, what an opportunity tonight to begin to bear that cross by being obedient to the gospel, being baptized into the death of Christ, Romans chapter 6 and verse 3 and verse 4, to arise to walk in newness of life. If you're here tonight and you've not lived faithfully and not bearing that cross as you should, what an opportunity tonight to make that right. Just together we stand as we sing. We do have visitors with us tonight, and we're so glad that you've come to be with us. Hope you'll be with us on the Lord's Day. We look forward each Lord's Day to being together, to be able to worship and have fellowship one with another, just to enjoy one another's presence. Sunday will be kind of split duty between me and Justin. I'll be speaking Sunday morning, he'll be speaking Sunday night. Any other announcement from anyone? Okay. Our dear Randy Moody will lead us in our closing prayer.